Kim Tae-ho stood at the window of his small room on the Galactic Unity Station and watched the stars. He had been living here for 2 years now, serving as Earth's cultural ambassador. It was a fancy title for a simple job. He answered questions about humans. He smiled at aliens who looked at him like he was a strange animal. He tried very hard not to offend anyone. Today was different. Today he held an invitation card made of metal that changed colors when he touched it. The words on it were simple. "The Queen of the Novari Empire requests your presence at the royal celebration." Tae-ho read the words again. Then he read them a third time. "You cannot go," said Yoon Ha-na from behind him. She was his assistant, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. "This is obviously a trap." "Everything in space is a trap," Tae-ho said calmly. "That does not mean we should hide in our rooms forever." Ha-na walked over and took the invitation from his hands. She studied it with a frown. "Do you know who Queen Velis is? She rules over 40 star systems. Her army has more soldiers than Earth has people, and she is famous for playing games with other species." "What kind of games?" "Mind games." Ha-na put the invitation down on the table. "She invites representatives from new species to her celebrations. Then she asks them one question. If she likes the answer, she offers friendship. If she does not like the answer—" Ha-na made a cutting motion across her throat. Tae-ho raised his eyebrows. "She kills them?" No, but she destroys their reputation. She tells the whole galaxy that their species is foolish or boring or unworthy. After that, no one wants to do business with them." Ha-na sat down heavily. 3 species have left the galactic community entirely because of her judgment. Tae-ho picked up the invitation again. The metal was warm in his hands. "Has she ever invited a human before?" "Never. We are too new, too small, too unimportant." Ha-na looked at him with worried eyes. "So why is she inviting you now?" That was a good question. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 20 years. They had no great technology. They had no powerful weapons. They had nothing special at all, according to most aliens. Humans were just the strange creatures from the small blue planet who smiled too much and asked too many questions. "Maybe she is curious," Tae-ho said. "Curiosity is dangerous when it comes from a queen." Tae-ho smiled softly. "I will be careful." Ha-na opened her mouth to argue more, but she knew that look on his face. When Tae-ho made a decision, he did not change his mind easily. She sighed and stood up. "Fine, but I am coming with you." "The invitation is only for me." "Then I will wait outside. If you are not back in 3 hours, I will call Earth and tell them you were eaten by a giant space insect." Tae-ho laughed. It was a warm sound that filled the small room. The Novari are not insects. They just look a little bit like insects. "That does not make me feel better." The celebration was held in the largest hall on the station. Tae-ho had never seen anything like it. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually formed near the top. The walls were covered with living plants that glowed in soft colors. And everywhere, there were aliens. Tae-ho saw creatures with 6 legs and creatures with no legs at all. He saw beings made of light and beings made of shadow. He saw giants who had to bend down to fit through the doors, and tiny creatures who flew through the air like birds. The sound of 100 different languages filled his ears. And then he saw the queen. Queen Velis sat on a throne made of crystal at the far end of the hall. She was tall and elegant, with a body that was shaped like a human woman, but covered in smooth, dark armor. Her wings folded behind her back like a cape made of rainbows. Her eyes were large and made of many smaller parts, and they reflected the light like jewels. On her head sat a crown of living flowers that changed color with her mood. She was beautiful, not in a human way, but beautiful in the way that a storm is beautiful, or a fire, or the endless dark between the stars. Around her stood dozens of aliens, all trying to get her attention. They brought her gifts. They said pretty words. They bowed and smiled and laughed at jokes that were not funny. The queen listened to all of them with a face that showed nothing. Tae-ho did not join the crowd. Instead, he found a quiet corner and watched. He watched the way the queen's fingers tapped against her throne when she was bored. He watched the way her wings moved slightly when someone said something interesting. He watched the way her eyes traveled across the room, always searching, never finding what she was looking for. "You are the human," said a deep voice beside him. Tae-ho turned and looked up. A massive creature stood next to him. He was reptilian, with green scales and yellow eyes and muscles that looked like they were made of stone. He wore golden armor that showed his chest, and his smile was full of sharp teeth. "I am," Tae-ho said politely. "And you are?" "I am Lord Dran of the Velkath Empire." The reptile looked down at Tae-ho like he was looking at a small bug. "I have heard that humans are weak and soft. I see that the stories are true." Tae-ho did not react to the insult. "We are different," he said simply. "Different is not the same as weak." Lord Dran laughed loudly. Other aliens turned to look at them. "Different? The human thinks being small and breakable makes him different." He shook his head. "Go home, little creature. This celebration is for important species. You do not belong here." Before Tae-ho could respond, a new sound filled the hall. It was a soft chime like a bell made of glass. Everyone fell silent and turned toward the throne. Queen Velis was standing. Her eyes were moving across the crowd, searching. And then suddenly, they stopped. They stopped on Tae-ho. The queen began to walk. The crowd parted before her like water before a ship. She moved with grace that made it look like she was floating. Her wings caught the light and scattered it into 1,000 colors. Her face was calm, but something in her eyes was alive with interest. She walked past the lords and ladies who had brought her expensive gifts. She walked past Lord Dran, who stood with his mouth open in shock. She walked past all the powerful and important aliens who had traveled across the galaxy to see her. She stopped directly in front of Kim Tae-ho. The human and the queen looked at each other. He was small and plain. She was tall and magnificent. He wore simple clothes. She wore the wealth of 40 star systems. By every measure, they were not equal. But Tae-ho did not look away. He met her jeweled eyes with his own dark ones, and he did not bow, and he did not tremble. The smallest smile touched the queen's lips. "So," she said, and her voice was like music made of ice, "you are the human who came to my celebration alone and unafraid. I think we need to talk." The hall was completely silent. Every alien in the room was watching the queen stand before the small human. Some looked confused. Some looked angry. Lord Dran looked like he had swallowed something sharp. Queen Velis studied Tae-ho with her strange, beautiful eyes. Up close, he could see that they were made of hundreds of tiny parts, each one catching the light differently. It was like looking into a sky full of stars. "You do not bow," she said. It was not a question. "I mean no disrespect, Your Majesty," Tae-ho replied calmly. "On Earth, we bow to show respect. But we also believe that all thinking beings have equal worth. I will bow if you wish, but I wanted you to know that I see you as an equal, not as someone above me." Whispers spread through the crowd like fire. Several aliens gasped. Lord Dran let out a sharp laugh. "Equal!" he shouted. "The human thinks he is equal to the Queen of the Novari. His species has been in space for only 20 years. We have been building empires for 20,000. But Queen Velis raised one elegant hand, and Lord Dran fell silent immediately. Her eyes never left Tae-ho's face. "Interesting," she said softly. "Most beings spend their whole lives trying to prove they are better than others. You are the first to claim equality." She tilted her head, and her rainbow wings shifted behind her. "I think I like you, human. Or at least I find you curious." She turned and walked back toward her throne, but instead of sitting down, she turned to face the entire crowd. "My guests," she announced, her voice filling every corner of the massive hall. "As you know, I have a tradition. When a new species joins our galactic community, I invite their representative to my celebration, and I ask them one question." Tae-ho felt his stomach tighten. Hana had warned him about this. "The answer to this question tells me everything I need to know about a species," the Queen continued. "It tells me if they are honest or if they are liars. It tells me if they are wise or if they are fools. It tells me if they are worthy of friendship or if they should be forgotten." She smiled. And it was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had played this game many times and always won. "Many have tried to give me the answer they thought I wanted to hear. They all failed." Her eyes found Tae-ho again. "Tonight, I will ask the human, and we will see what his species is truly made of." The crowd parted, creating a clear path between the Queen and Tae-ho. Slowly, he walked forward. His footsteps were the only sound in the silent hall. He could feel every eye on him. He could feel the weight of Earth's future pressing down on his shoulders. He stopped a few steps from the throne and waited. Queen Velis sat down gracefully. The flowers in her crown turned a deep shade of purple. She leaned forward slightly, and her voice dropped to something almost gentle. "I have heard many things about humans," she said. "I have heard that you are weak but stubborn. I have heard that you form strange emotional bonds with other creatures. I have heard that you value something called love above power and wealth." She paused. "I find these stories hard to believe, but I want to understand." "Ask your question, Your Majesty," Tae-ho said quietly. "I will answer honestly." The Queen's smile grew wider. "Oh, I am counting on that." She stood again and spread her wings wide. They caught the light and threw colors across the walls. In that moment, she looked like a goddess from an old story, powerful and terrible and beautiful beyond words. "Here is my question, human," she said, and her voice rang like a bell. "Who do you think is sexy?" The word hung in the air. Tae-ho blinked. Whatever he had expected, it was not this. Around him, the aliens began to whisper again. Some laughed nervously. Some looked at each other in confusion. Lord Dran crossed his arms over his massive chest and grinned. "A simple question," Lord Dran called out. "Even a human should be able to answer it, unless your species is too primitive to understand attraction." Tae-ho ignored him. His mind was working quickly, trying to understand what was really happening. This was a trap. He could see that clearly. If he pointed at the Queen and said she was the most attractive being in the room, he would look like every other fool who had tried to win her favor with flattery. If he pointed at someone else, he might offend her. If he pointed at a female of his own species, he would look small and limited. There was no safe answer. Every path led to failure. But then Tae-ho thought about something Ha-na had told him. The Queen was tired of flattery. She was tired of lies. She had played this game for hundreds of years, and no one had ever surprised her. Maybe the trap was not the question itself. Maybe the trap was thinking that there was a correct answer at all. Tae-ho took a deep breath. Then he did something that no one in that room expected. He asked a question back. "Your Majesty," he said slowly, "before I answer, may I ask something first?" The Queen's wings stopped moving. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Around the room, aliens exchanged shocked looks. No one asked the Queen questions. No one. But instead of anger, something else crossed Queen Velis's face. It looked almost like surprise. And beneath that, buried deep where no one else could see it, there was something that might have been hope. "You want to ask me a question?" she repeated. That has never happened before. I apologize if it is rude, Teho said, but I cannot give you an honest answer unless I understand what you are truly asking. The queen was silent for a long moment. The flowers in her crown slowly changed from purple to a soft, curious blue. Very well, human, she said finally. Ask your question. Teho nodded. My question is this. Do you want me to tell you what I think you want to hear? Or do you want me to tell you the truth, even if it is strange and confusing and nothing like what you expect? The hall was so quiet that Teho could hear his own heartbeat. Queen Velis stared at him. Her face showed nothing, but behind her eyes, something was changing. Something was waking up. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, almost human. The truth, she whispered. I have been waiting a very long time for someone brave enough to give me the truth. Teho smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Then, Your Majesty, he said, I need to tell you something about humans first, because the way we see attraction is very different from anything you have heard before. And once I explain it, I do not think you will ever see the galaxy the same way again. The queen leaned forward on her throne. Her eyes were bright with something that had been missing for centuries. Curiosity. Tell me everything, she said. Queen Velis raised her hand and servants appeared from the shadows. They carried chairs made of crystal and placed them in the center of the hall. One for the queen, one for the human. The other aliens were left standing, watching from a distance. Teho sat down across from the queen. This close, he could smell her perfume. It was sweet and strange, like flowers that had never grown on Earth. Before you explain, the queen said, let me tell you about the others. Let me tell you what they answered, so you can understand why I am so tired. She waved her hand, and the lights in the hall changed. Images appeared in the air between them, like memories made of light. Teho watched in wonder as the queen began to share her past. 300 years ago, she said, I asked my question to the ambassador of the Threll. They are a warrior species, strong, proud, and famous for their bravery. The image showed a massive creature covered in thick fur. His eyes were red, and his teeth were like knives. He stood before a younger version of Queen Velis with his chest puffed out. He pointed directly at me, the queen continued. He said I was the most beautiful creature in all the galaxies. He said my wings were like the birth of stars. He said my eyes held the secrets of the universe. Teho watched the memory. The warrior spoke his pretty words with a confident smile. He clearly expected the queen to be pleased. What did you do? Teho asked. I asked him why. The queen's voice was cold. He had no answer. He had never thought about why he found me attractive. He just knew that I was powerful, and he wanted to be close to power. She shook her head. His words were empty. He did not see me. He saw my crown. The image faded and was replaced by another. This time, Teho saw a creature that looked like a snake made of silver. It had no arms or legs, just a long, beautiful body that moved like water. 200 years ago, I asked the same question to the speaker of the Ven. They are merchants. They control trade across 100 star systems. The silver snake bowed low before the queen. When it spoke, its voice was smooth and oily. He did not point at me, the queen said. He was smarter than the warrior. Instead, he pointed at the wife of the most powerful lord in the room. He said that true beauty comes from influence, that the most attractive female is always the one who controls the most resources. A political answer, Teho said quietly. Yes, he was trying to show me that he understood power, that he would make a good ally because he knew how the game was played. The queen's wings twitched with irritation. But he was also a coward. He was afraid to give his own opinion. He only said what he thought would be safe. The image changed again. This time, Taeho almost laughed. It showed Lord Dran, but younger. His scales were brighter, his muscles even larger. He stood before the queen with the same arrogant smile he wore tonight. "And what about him?" Taeho asked. "Lord Dran answered 50 years ago." He pointed at himself. The queen's voice was flat. "He said that he was the most attractive being in the galaxy. He explained in great detail why his scales were the perfect color, why his body was the perfect shape, why his species was superior to all others." Taeho glanced across the hall at Lord Dran, who was watching them with narrow eyes. Was he joking? No. He was completely serious. The queen sighed. In a strange way, I almost respected his honesty. At least he said what he truly believed. But his answer told me that his species only sees themselves. They cannot imagine that anything different from them might have value. The images faded away. The lights returned to normal. Queen Velis looked at Taeho with eyes that held centuries of disappointment. "Do you understand now, human? Every answer I have ever received has been empty. Flattery, politics, pride. No one has ever told me what attraction really means to them. No one has ever been brave enough to be honest." Taeho was quiet for a moment. He thought about all the aliens in the room. They were all so different from each other, different shapes, different colors, different ways of thinking, and yet they all made the same mistake. They all thought the question had a right answer. "May I ask another question, Your Majesty?" The queen raised one elegant eyebrow. "You are very fond of questions. Humans believe that the right question is more important than the right answer." Something flickered in the queen's eyes. Interest. Real interest. "Ask. Why do you ask this question? What are you hoping to find?" No one had ever asked her that before. The queen opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. For a long moment, she was silent. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, quieter, more real. "I am over 400 years old," she said. "I have ruled my empire since I was young. I have met thousands of beings from hundreds of species. They have given me gifts and compliments and promises of friendship, but none of them have ever truly seen me." She looked down at her hands. They were elegant and strong, but suddenly they looked tired. "They see my crown. They see my power. They see what they can gain from me, but they do not see me." She raised her eyes to meet Taeho's. "I ask this question because I want to find someone who understands that attraction is not about what you can take from another person. It is about what you can share." The words hung in the air between them. Taeho felt something shift in his chest. This was not a game anymore. This was something real. "Your Majesty," he said gently, "I think I understand now. And I think I can give you an answer that you have never heard before. But I need to warn you about something first." "Warn me?" "Yes." Taeho leaned forward slightly. "Humans see attraction differently than any other species you have met. When I explain it, you might think I am lying. You might think I am crazy. But I promise you that every word will be the truth." The queen studied his face for a long moment. She was searching for something: deception, flattery, the same emptiness she had seen 1,000 times before. She did not find it. Instead, she found something she had almost forgotten existed. She found someone who was looking at her not as a queen, not as a symbol, not as a prize to be won. She found someone who was looking at her as a person. "Tell me," she whispered. "Tell me how humans see attraction. I am ready to listen." Taeho nodded slowly. Around them, the entire hall held its breath, and then he began to speak. Taeho looked at the queen for a long moment before he began. He wanted to find the right words, not because he wanted to impress her, but because he wanted her to understand. "On Earth," he said slowly, "we have a saying: beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Do you know what that means? The queen tilted her head. I am not sure. It means that there is no single definition of beauty. What one person finds attractive, another person might not notice at all. What makes someone's heart beat faster is different for every individual. A murmur went through the crowd. Several aliens exchanged confused looks. Lord Dran laughed loudly. That is ridiculous, he called out. Beauty can be measured. Symmetry, strength, health. These are universal standards. Teho turned to look at him. Are they? Tell me, Lord Dran, do you find Queen Velis beautiful? The reptile blinked. Of course. She is magnificent. And do you find me beautiful? Lord Dran made a disgusted face. You? You are small and soft and have no scales. You are not beautiful. You are barely worth looking at. And yet, Teho said calmly, on my planet, there are billions of people who would disagree. There are people who find humans like me very attractive. There are people who would look at you, Lord Dran, and see nothing appealing at all. The hall went silent. Lord Dran's face twisted with anger, but he had no response. Teho turned back to the queen. This is the first thing you must understand about humans. We do not have a single standard of beauty. We have billions of standards. Every person sees the world differently. Every person is attracted to different things. Queen Velis leaned forward on her throne. Her flowers had turned a deep, thoughtful green. Continue. The second thing is more difficult to explain. Teho paused, gathering his thoughts. For most species, attraction seems to be about the body, the shape, the color, the strength. These things are important to humans too, but they are not the most important things. What is more important than the body? Teho smiled softly. The person inside the body. He stood up and began to walk slowly across the hall. Every eye followed him. He was not performing. He was thinking out loud, sharing something real. Humans can find someone physically beautiful and feel nothing, he said. We can look at the most perfect body in the universe and not be attracted at all. Because attraction, for us, is not just about what we see. It is about what we feel. He turned to face the queen again. We are attracted to confidence, not the loud, boasting kind, the quiet kind, the kind that comes from someone who knows who they are and does not need to prove it to anyone. Confidence, the queen repeated quietly. We are attracted to kindness, the way someone treats others when they have nothing to gain. The way someone helps a stranger just because it is the right thing to do. Teho's voice grew warmer. We are attracted to intelligence, not just knowledge, but the way someone thinks, the way they ask questions, the way they wonder about the universe. He walked closer to the queen. The guards at her side tensed, but she waved them back. We are attracted to passion, Teho continued. When someone talks about something they love, their eyes light up. Their voice changes. They become more alive. That light, that fire, that is beautiful to us. And what about flaws? The queen asked suddenly. What about scars? What about imperfections? Teho nodded slowly. That is perhaps the strangest part of human attraction. We often find imperfections more attractive than perfection. The crowd murmured in confusion. Lord Dran snorted. Impossible. Imperfection is weakness. But Teho shook his head. Not to humans. To us, imperfections are proof that someone is real. A scar tells a story. A strange laugh shows personality. The way someone's voice cracks when they are emotional shows that they have a heart. He looked directly at the queen. Perfect things are cold. They are distant. They are statues to be admired but never touched. But imperfect things are warm. They are alive. They are real. Queen Velis was very still. Her wings had stopped moving completely. Her eyes were fixed on Teho's face with an intensity that made the air feel thick. You are saying, she said slowly, that humans are attracted to reality? Yes. Tejo smiled. We are attracted to the truth of a person, not the mask they wear, not the role they play, but who they really are underneath. But how do you know who someone really is? People hide themselves, they lie, they pretend. We look for the small things. Tejo sat down in his chair again. The way someone treats a servant, the way they react when they think no one is watching, the way they laugh when they forget to be serious. These small moments show us the real person. He leaned forward. And that is why your question is impossible for me to answer the way others have answered it. You asked me who I find attractive, but I cannot point at someone in this room and say they are the most attractive. I do not know these people. I have not seen them laugh or cry or think or dream. I have only seen their masks. The queen was silent. The flowers in her crown were changing colors rapidly, shifting through shades that Tejo had never seen before. Something was happening inside her. Something was breaking loose. Then let me ask you differently, she said, and her voice was barely a whisper. If you had to describe what you find attractive without pointing at anyone, what would you say? Around the hall, the aliens leaned closer. Even Lord Dran had stopped making noise. Everyone wanted to hear the answer. Tejo took a deep breath. I find curiosity attractive, he said, the desire to understand things, to ask questions instead of making demands. What else? Courage, not the courage to fight, but the courage to be honest, to say what you really think even when it is dangerous. And Tejo met the queen's eyes. Vulnerability, the strength it takes to admit that you are lonely, that you are tired, that you want something more than power and praise. The queen did not move. She did not breathe. Her eyes were locked on his, and in them, Tejo could see something he had not expected. Fear. She was afraid, not of him, not of his words. She was afraid because he was seeing something that no one had ever seen before, something she had hidden for 400 years, the loneliness behind the crown. Your Majesty, Tejo said gently, I think you asked this question because you want someone to see you, not the queen, not the ruler, just you. A single tear appeared in one of her compound eyes. It caught the light like a diamond. How? She whispered. How can you see that? We have only just met. Tejo smiled sadly. Because I recognize loneliness when I see it. Humans know that feeling very well. The hall was completely silent. No one dared to speak. No one dared to move. Queen Velis sat on her throne of crystal, the most powerful being in the room, and for the first time in centuries, she felt completely seen, and she did not know whether to thank the human or run away. The silence in the hall was so deep that Tejo could hear the soft hum of the lights above them. Every alien in the room was frozen, watching the queen and the human as if they were seeing something impossible. And perhaps they were. Queen Velis sat perfectly still on her throne. The tear in her eye had not fallen. It just sat there, catching the light, proving that underneath all her power and beauty, she was still a living creature who could feel pain. You still have not answered my question, she said finally. Her voice was steady, but something in it had changed. The ice was gone. She sounded almost like a normal person. You are right, Tejo nodded. I explained how humans think about attraction, but I did not tell you what I find attractive. Do you still want to know? Yes. Tejo looked at her for a long moment. He was not trying to flatter her. He was not trying to win anything. He was just being honest. When I walked into this hall tonight, he said, I did not know what to expect. I was nervous. Humans are still new to the galaxy. We are small and weak compared to most species. I thought you might ignore me completely. The queen listened without interrupting. But then you did something interesting. Instead of staying on your throne and letting others come to you, you stood up and walked across the entire hall. You walked past all the powerful lords and ladies. You walked past everyone who was trying to get your attention, and you came directly to me. I was curious about you, the Queen said. I know. And that is the first thing I found attractive about you. The words hung in the air. Several aliens gasped. Lord Dran's mouth fell open. You found that attractive? The Queen asked slowly. Yes, because it showed me that you think for yourself. You do not follow expectations. You do not do what you are supposed to do. You do what you want to do. Tejo smiled slightly. Curiosity is one of the most beautiful qualities a person can have. The Queen's wings moved slightly, catching the light. What else? When I refused to bow, you could have been angry. You could have punished me. Instead, you listened to my explanation. You considered my perspective. You treated me as an equal, even though I am just a human from a small planet. Tejo's voice grew warmer. That showed me that you are open-minded, that you can see value in things that are different from you. He stood up and took a step closer to the throne. The guards moved forward, but the Queen raised her hand to stop them. And then you started asking questions, Tejo continued. Real questions. Not the kind of questions that powerful people usually ask. Not demands or tests or traps. You asked because you genuinely wanted to understand. I always want to understand, the Queen said quietly. That is exactly my point. You have been ruling an empire for 400 years. You have more power than anyone in this room. You could spend your life taking whatever you want and never asking for anything. Tejo met her eyes. But instead, you ask questions. You want to learn. You want to grow. That is rare. That is precious. That is beautiful. The crowd was whispering now, but Tejo did not care. He was speaking only to the Queen. But do you know what I find most attractive about you? The Queen shook her head slightly. Your honesty just now, when you told me why you asked this question, when you admitted that you are tired, when you admitted that you are lonely. Tejo's voice dropped to almost a whisper. It takes incredible courage to admit weakness when you are powerful. It would be easy for you to pretend that everything is perfect. It would be safe. But you chose to be real with me instead. He took one more step forward. They were close now. Close enough that he could see every detail of her alien face, the way the light moved inside her compound eyes, the slight tremble in her wings. Your Majesty, he said gently, you asked me who I find attractive. The honest answer is this. I am attracted to people who are brave enough to be real. People who ask questions instead of giving orders. People who can admit that they are lonely even when the whole galaxy is watching. He paused. Right now, in this moment, you are showing me all of those things. So yes, Your Majesty, I find you attractive. Not because of your power, not because of your beauty, not because of your crown, but because you are real, and real is the most attractive thing in the universe. The hall was completely silent. Queen Velis stared at Tejo with eyes that held 1,000 emotions: shock, confusion, disbelief, and underneath all of that, something that looked almost like hope. No one has ever said anything like that to me, she whispered. I know. I do not know how to respond. You do not have to respond. I just wanted to answer your question honestly. The Queen was quiet for a long moment. The flowers in her crown had turned a color that Tejo had never seen before. A soft, warm gold, the color of sunrise on Earth. Then slowly, she did something that shocked everyone in the hall. She laughed. It was not a big laugh. It was small and quiet and slightly surprised, as if she had forgotten she knew how to laugh at all. But it was real. It was honest. It was the most human sound Tae-ho had ever heard from an alien. "You are very strange, Kim Tae-ho," she said. "So I have been told. You walked into my hall with nothing. No gifts, no army, no power, and somehow you have done what no one else has ever done." She shook her head slowly, but she was still smiling. "You have made me feel seen." "Is that a good thing?" The Queen considered the question. Her smile faded, but something warm remained in her eyes. "I do not know yet," she said honestly. "It has been so long since anyone has seen me. I have forgotten what it feels like. It is strange. It is frightening." She paused. "But it is also wonderful." Behind Tae-ho, Lord Dran finally found his voice. "This is ridiculous," he shouted. "The human has not answered the question properly. He was supposed to point at someone. He was supposed to choose the most attractive being. This is nothing but tricks and word games." But Queen Velis did not even look at him. Her eyes stayed on Tae-ho. "Lord Dran," she said calmly, "you have been coming to my celebrations for 50 years. In all that time, you have never once made me feel anything at all. This human, in one conversation, has made me feel more than you ever have." Her voice grew cold. "Be quiet, or leave." Lord Dran's face turned a darker shade of green, but he did not say another word. The Queen stood from her throne. She was tall and magnificent, and her wings spread wide behind her like a sunrise. "I think," she said, "that you and I have more to discuss, Kim Tae-ho. But not here. Not with everyone watching." She looked around the hall. "This celebration is over. Everyone leave." The crowd began to move, confused and whispering. But the Queen raised her hand once more. "Except you, human. You stay." The great hall emptied slowly. Aliens of every shape and size walked toward the doors, looking back over their shoulders at the human and the Queen. Their faces showed confusion, curiosity, and in some cases jealousy. Lord Dran was the last to leave, and his yellow eyes burned with hatred as he passed Tae-ho. But Tae-ho did not notice. His attention was on Queen Velis. When the doors finally closed and they were alone, the Queen let out a long breath. Her whole body seemed to relax. The stiff, regal posture softened. The cold expression melted away. For the first time, Tae-ho was looking at the person behind the crown. "Follow me," she said quietly. She led him through a small door hidden behind her throne. They walked down a narrow hallway lit by glowing plants. The walls were covered with paintings of strange landscapes, planets that Tae-ho had never seen. Finally, they entered a small room. It was nothing like what Tae-ho expected. No gold, no crystal, no symbols of power. Just simple furniture, soft lighting, and a large window that looked out at the stars. "This is my private chamber," the Queen said. "No one comes here except me." Tae-ho looked around. On a small table, he saw books, real paper books which were rare in space. There were also small objects that looked like toys or games, and there were pictures of other Novari, some young, some old. "Your family?" he asked, pointing at the pictures. "My mother, my sisters, they are all gone now." The Queen's voice was soft. "I am the last of my line." She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Without her formal posture, she looked smaller, more fragile, more real. "You know something, human? I have been queen for 400 years. In all that time, I have never brought anyone to this room." Tae-ho remained quiet, letting her speak. "When I was young, I had friends. I had people I trusted. But as I grew more powerful, they all changed. Some became afraid of me, some tried to use me, some just stopped seeing me as a person." She turned to face him. "Do you understand what it is like to be surrounded by millions of beings and still be completely alone?" I think I understand a little, Teho said gently. Humans feel that too sometimes. But you have each other. You have your families, your friends, your lovers. The queen shook her head slowly. I have subjects. I have servants. I have allies. But I do not have anyone who knows who I really am. She reached up and removed the crown from her head. Without it, she looked different. Younger, somehow. More vulnerable. The flowers in the crown continued to glow softly as she set them aside. You are the first person in centuries to see me without my crown, she said. How does it feel? Teho looked at her carefully. It feels like meeting someone new. Someone I would like to know better. The queen let out a small laugh. You are very good with words, Kim Teho. I am just being honest. That is what makes you dangerous. She sat down on a simple chair near the window. Do you know what the other species think of humans? They think you are weak, simple, unimportant. A species that will disappear in a few thousand years. I have heard those opinions, but I think they are wrong. The queen's eyes found his. You have something that no other species has, something that I have been searching for my entire life. What is that? The ability to see the person inside the power. She leaned forward slightly. Every other species I have met sees only what is on the outside. The body, the crown, the army. They cannot imagine that there might be something deeper, something hidden, something worth knowing. She paused. But you walked into my hall and saw through everything. You saw my loneliness. You saw my curiosity. You saw the real me hiding behind the mask. How did you do that? Teho thought about the question carefully. I think it is because humans are broken, he said finally. Broken? Yes. We live short lives. We feel pain easily. We know that everything we love will eventually be lost. He smiled sadly. This breaks us, but it also teaches us something important. What does it teach you? That the outside does not matter. Bodies get old. Power fades. Beauty disappears. The only thing that lasts is the connection between two hearts. He looked at her with gentle eyes. So we learn to look past the surface. We learn to see the person hiding inside, because that person is the only thing that is real. Queen Velis was silent for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I have been alive for over 400 years. I have seen stars born and die. I have watched empires rise and fall. I have learned everything there is to learn about war and politics and power. She shook her head slowly. But a human, from a species younger than some of my furniture, has taught me something new tonight. What is that? That I have been looking for connection in all the wrong places. She stood and walked toward Teho. I have been asking beings to tell me who is attractive, hoping that someone would see me. But I was asking the wrong question. What should you have asked? The queen stopped in front of him. They were close now. Close enough that Teho could see his own reflection in her compound eyes. I should have asked, who can see me? Who can look past the crown and the power and the fear? Who is brave enough to be honest with a queen? She smiled, and it was the warmest smile Teho had ever seen. The answer, it turns out, is a human. Your Majesty, please. She held up her hand. In this room, I am not a queen. I am just Velis. Just a person who has been alone for too long. Teho nodded slowly. Velis. She closed her eyes briefly, as if hearing her own name was a gift she had forgotten she wanted. I think I finally understand, she said, why the galaxy should fear your species. Teho raised his eyebrows. Fear us? We are the weakest species in the room. No. Velis opened her eyes, and they were filled with something new, something like respect, something like wonder. You are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. because you can do something that no one else can do. What is that? You can make people feel seen. You can reach into the loneliest heart and remind it that it is not alone. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And for beings like me, who have been alone for so long, that is more powerful than any weapon ever made. Outside the window, the stars continued to shine. And for the first time in 400 years, Queen Velis of the Novari did not feel alone. The next morning, a message went out across the Galactic Unity Station. All representatives were ordered to gather in the main assembly hall. The Queen of the Novari had an announcement. Tejo stood at the back of the crowd, trying not to be noticed. Hana was beside him, her eyes wide with worry. "What happened last night?" she whispered. "You were gone for hours. I thought you were dead. I was talking with the Queen." "Talking? For 5 hours?" Tejo smiled but did not explain. Some conversations were too precious to share. The assembly hall was enormous, designed to hold thousands of beings from hundreds of species. Today, it was completely full. Everyone wanted to hear what the Queen would say about the strange human who had disrupted her celebration. Lord Dran stood near the front, his scales shining in the light. He looked confident, as if he expected the Queen to announce that she was angry with the human, that Earth would be punished for Tejo's disrespect. But when Queen Velis entered the hall, she did not look angry at all. She walked with her head high and her wings spread behind her. She had returned to her formal posture, her cold expression, her royal mask. But when her eyes passed over Tejo in the crowd, something warm flickered in them. A secret smile that only he could see. She took her place at the front of the assembly and raised her hand for silence. "Representatives of the galactic community," she announced, her voice filling the hall, "I have called you here to make an important declaration." The crowd waited in tense silence. For hundreds of years, the Novari Empire has been careful about its alliances. We do not offer friendship easily. We do not trust easily. Many species have tried to earn our favor and failed. Lord Dran smiled, clearly expecting the Queen to insult Earth. "But last night," the Queen continued, "something changed. For the first time in my long life, I met a representative who gave me something I did not expect." She paused, letting the silence build. "He did not give me flattery. He did not give me gifts. He did not try to impress me with power or wealth." Her eyes found Tejo in the crowd. "He gave me honesty. He gave me truth. He gave me something that no one else has ever offered, a genuine connection." The crowd began to whisper. Lord Dran's smile faded. "Therefore," the Queen announced, "I am formally declaring an alliance between the Novari Empire and Earth." The whispers became shouts. Several aliens cried out in protest. Lord Dran pushed forward, his face dark with anger. "Your Majesty, this is madness," he shouted. "The humans have nothing to offer. They are weak. They are primitive. They have been in space for only 20 years. Why would you ally with such worthless creatures?" Queen Velis looked at him with cold eyes. "Are you questioning my judgment, Lord Dran?" The reptile hesitated. He was angry. But he was not stupid. Questioning the Queen publicly was dangerous, but he could not stay silent. "I just want to understand," he said, trying to control his voice. "What could a human possibly give you that no one else can? What makes them worthy of the greatest empire in the galaxy?" Queen Velis was quiet for a moment. Then she turned to face the entire assembly. "Do you all want to know why I have chosen the humans?" she asked. "Then I will tell you." She spread her wings wide. The light caught them and scattered colors across the hall. "For 400 years, I have asked every new species the same question. I have asked them who they find attractive. And for 400 years, every single species has given me the same empty answers: flattery, politics, pride." Her voice grew stronger. The warrior pointed at me because he wanted power. The merchant pointed at politics because he was afraid. Lord Dran pointed at himself because he could not imagine anyone else having value. She shook her head. They all failed because they all saw the galaxy the same way, as a competition, as a game to be won. She turned toward Tejo. But the human saw something different. He did not see power or beauty or wealth. He saw me, the real me, the lonely person hiding behind the crown. The hall fell silent. That is what humans can do, the Queen continued. They can see the person inside the power. They can connect with the heart behind the mask. They can make you feel less alone in a galaxy of strangers. She looked around the assembly with fierce eyes. You ask what they can offer? They can offer understanding, compassion, connection. They can offer the one thing that every being in this galaxy secretly wants, but is too afraid to ask for. And what is that? Someone called out. To be seen, the Queen said simply. To be truly known. To be loved not for what you have, but for who you are. The words hung in the air. Many aliens looked uncomfortable. Some looked confused. But a few, here and there, had a strange expression on their faces. Understanding, recognition, perhaps even longing. Humans are not the strongest species, the Queen said. They are not the smartest or the fastest or the most powerful, but they have something that none of us have. They have the ability to reach into a lonely heart and make it feel whole. She smiled. It was a real smile, not a royal one. That is more valuable than all the armies in the galaxy. That is why I am proud to call Earth an ally. The assembly was quiet. Then, slowly, applause began. It started small, just a few aliens clapping. But it grew and grew until the whole hall was filled with sound. Lord Dran stood frozen, his face a mask of confusion and rage, but he was alone in his anger. Everyone else was looking at the human with new eyes. As the assembly ended and the crowd began to leave, Queen Velis stepped down from her platform. She walked through the crowd, which parted before her, and stopped in front of Tejo. Ambassador Kim, she said formally for everyone to hear, I look forward to a long and fruitful alliance between our species. Then, quietly enough that only he could hear, she added, Thank you, Tejo, for seeing me. He smiled and bowed his head slightly. Thank you for being brave enough to let me see. She smiled back. It was a small smile, but it was real. Then she turned and walked away, her rainbow wings catching the light. Hana grabbed Tejo's arm as soon as the Queen was gone. Do you understand what just happened? She hissed. You just made Earth the ally of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. How? What did you do? Tejo watched the Queen's figure disappear through the doors. He thought about their long conversation in her private chamber. He thought about the loneliness in her eyes. He thought about how a single moment of honesty had changed everything. I just told her the truth, he said simply. Humans are good at that. Outside the assembly hall, the stars continued to shine, and somewhere in the vastness of space, word was spreading. The humans had arrived. And they were nothing like anyone expected. They were not conquerors. They were not warriors. They were not scientists or merchants or politicians. They were something far more dangerous. They were the species that could make you feel seen. And that, the galaxy was learning, changed everything.